All right, great.
Good evening. Hello. And welcome. I'm so excited. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to our Rice Business Partner Thought Leadership event tonight. Very excited. We're going to be with Mr. Pascal Desroches and with Dean Rodriguez. Before we get started, I would like to go through some very interesting, exciting things. My name is Marina Hardy. I am chair of our membership committee of Rice Business Partners. I'm very passionate about our mission and vision and want to talk a little bit about that. But first, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to President Reginald Desroches and family. Thank you so much for being here. And by show of hands, who is here for the very first time on Rice campus? Anybody? First time in Rice campus, welcome. It is very exciting to have you. Anybody here for the first time at the Rice Business Partners event? Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. Very exciting. Thank you. It is wonderful to have you all. The mission and vision of Rice Business Partners is to connect, inform, and inspire. We connect people in the greater Houston business community with Rice. We inspire through thought leadership series like this, through events, and we inform by bringing everybody together with our beautiful student talent that we have here at Rice University. Rice Business is an affinity-based group, which means that for those of us that are members, our membership goes back towards school needs. And if you are interested in being a corporate member, an individual member, I would love to talk to you about that. And the reason why we talk about membership, it's thanks to our corporate members, we've been here and bringing these events to you over time. We partnered with Chevron for over 20 years, Shell and Bank of America for over 15 years. We want to thank all of our corporate sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. Corporate sponsors get to bring all of our favorite colleagues to these events and go to exclusive events. Thank you for all of our new corporate members and individual members as well. Couple of quick announcements. These events happen throughout the academic year. Our next event is on March 4th. This is going to be a faculty roundtable with Professor Dwayne Windsor. We'll talk about ESG. We'll talk about corporate credibility and skepticism. Perfect environment for this. Please join us. You can register now. That's March 4th. And the conversation does not stop today about change. Leading organizational change is the very new and exciting program with Executive Rice Business Executive Education 3-day program with a New York Times acclaimed writer and our faculty, Scott Sonnenschein. 3 days of excitement. I only see you, Mike. That's why I'm picking on you. I know there's Lauren somewhere. There you go. So if you're interested, there are discounts available. Please talk to them. But leading change, implementing the tools for change are critical. And that's what today's discussion is going to be about. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dean Peter Rodriguez. And I'll switch it up a little bit. I will talk about you as the change driver. Over the last 10 years as the Dean of Rice, you have changed and accomplished so much. Dean Rodriguez implemented or started a new hybrid MBA, an online MBA at Rice, and I think that was the first online program. We now have an undergraduate MBA program, and we have beautiful Verani School of Business. And as you were driving in, and maybe were inconvenienced by the construction, you saw our new beautiful building going up. to expand the business school. Very exciting. And Peter, I really like how you continue to innovate and continue leading the change. AI is now everywhere, and so AI is now in the curriculum of Rice Business. With that, let's welcome Dean Peter Rodriguez to the stage to introduce our guest. Thank you.
So much,
I appreciate you.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much, Marina, for that kind introduction. Thanks, all of you, for being here. This is a wonderful event and a great opportunity for me. These are one of the things that I really look forward to the most, so I'm really happy to have our guest, Pascal Desroches, here. I grew up in Texas, and I can say for all of my life, there were really sort of two big companies in Texas. AT&T and ExxonMobil sort of really were the most influential in the state. AT&T, 150-year-old business, been around a long time, has shaped modern life in the United States and around the world. And tonight we're really privileged to have Pascal Desroches here to talk to us about himself, his job, his role, and anything else that we happen to cover. And certainly we'll have some of your questions. I have some formal things to say about Pascal. In just a moment, we'll sit down and we'll really get to know the man. So we'll get to know that. Pascal serves as AT&T's Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, overseeing the financial strategy for AT&T's $122 billion connectivity business. If I'm right, I think AT&T has about 141,000 employees, a market cap in the 180, 190 billion. I don't know what happened today, but it's awfully big. A lot of things happening. He's responsible for leading the company's financial planning, accounting, tax, auditing. It's just lovely to read these words. These are all near and dear to my heart as a business school dean. Investor relations and corporate real estate functions. Since joining AT&T in 2021, Pascal has spearheaded the company's significant cost transformation efforts, simplified and strengthened its balance sheet, and overseen historic levels of 5G and fiber investment. Prior to joining AT&T, Pascal was EVP and CFO of Warner Media and Administrative Officer of Turner Broadcasting Systems, Inc., and previously Turner's CFO and Global Controller of Time Warner. That's quite a list. Pascal serves on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, on the board of directors there, the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas, the board of directors of Prep for Prep. He graduated with honors from St. John's University and received his MBA from Columbia University. He and his wife, Yvette, live in Dallas, and they have 2 adult children. Pascal, I'm delighted to have you here. I welcome you to come and share some of your thoughts with us. Have you been to Rice University before?
I think so. Yeah. You know, I know a few people here who work with the administration, so it's...
Well, we have fine leadership. We can talk about that if you'd like. But delighted to have you here. You know what I wanted to always say is
It's a pleasure to be here, honestly. This school has great history. It has so incredibly well known and has produced some of the best graduates in the world. So sincere pleasure to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
Well, you know, for so much of what happens in a business school, the CFO is kind of the protagonist. We're always inviting people to imagine. This may sound abstract, this is a problem, but imagine you were the CFO of a $200 billion company. What would you do in this particular case? How would you respond? I thought we'd start with you. Like, did you imagine being a CFO? I mean, was that, as a little boy, did you think one day I'll be a CFO?
Peter, I was not that ambitious. You know, it really is funny. You get out of school, you have your line of sight to one thing. As you get into it, you learn a little bit more. Your aperture expands, and all of a sudden you start to broaden your expectations and what is possible. Look, my number one goal getting out of school was getting a job. You know, and so
What was your first job out of
my
school?
first job out of school was I was an accountant for KPMG. So, and at the time, the firm was named Peat Markman, so I started in their audit practice. And at the time,
CPA.
Yeah, I pursued. I was an accounting major undergrad. There were the Big 8 accounting firm was now the Big 4, and KPMG was among the biggest at the time, and I joined the firm, and I stayed with that firm for about 13 years before joining corporate America more broadly at Time Warner, and then ultimately now with AT&T.
Now, that's a huge journey. And then somewhere in the middle is you decide to get an MBA. I have to make a plug, right?
Indeed. Honestly, I was quite fortunate. After my third year at KPMG, I was identified as a high potential, and they had just started a program with Columbia where you would get your MBA, full MBA, during the course of 3 consecutive summers. You took full class load. I took 6 classes each summer and 1 class each spring, each fall.
And you're working too.
Well, during the summer they gave you off. They paid you. They paid for the school. In return, you committed to work for the firm for 3 additional years upon graduation, and I did that, and it was a win-win. For me, it allowed me to grow and to really grow my network, gain perspectives I would not have gained by simply continuing to work within a big accounting firm. You don't need an MBA to be a partner at a big accounting firm. But I felt that if I were going to be the best possible business person I could be, I needed to have as broad of a perspective as possible. And I jumped at the opportunity to get an MBA from a school like Columbia.
That's fantastic.
And I know I came back. I was a better professional as a result of it. My network and the people I had known had grown significantly. And in return, I was able to bring contacts and perspective to the firm that I otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
a big
win-win.
So that's part of the training that's going to lead you up to getting started with places and ending up at a place like Time Warner. Could you say a little bit about some of the deals you're involved in? When I think of Time Warner, I would say, younger students and others may not remember, but some of the biggest deals in corporate America over the last 30 years, they were going on at that time. And then you have media companies evolving, changing rapidly, business models being torn apart. What was it like for you? What did you experience there? I mentioned very briefly to Peter, most people are fortunate to have one major transaction and transformation that they're involved with in their career. I've had 2 pretty significant transformations I've been involved with. The first one happened shortly after I joined a company that was named AOL Time Warner. What does the AOL stand for?
Yes, exactly. And believe it or not, some of you are too young to remember this. AOL was the largest company in the world in the late 90s. When you thought of the internet, you thought of AOL. AOL was how the vast, vast majority of people accessed the internet. And AOL bought this legacy media company named Time Warner. And they combined to a lot of fanfare and announced a lot of great potential. But shortly after the merger, AOL's business model began to fray. They were using dial-up technology to access the internet.
They don't know what that is either, but that's okay. We remember the sound.
Yes.
Dial-up technology. Yeah.
And at the time, there was this great technology being developed called DSL. As often happens in business, when you are really successful in your business model, you work to try to protect it, and you don't lean in and try to disrupt yourself. And candidly, AOL and we as a management team didn't react quick enough to the changing landscape, and AOL quickly, the merger didn't work out, and over the next several years, we spent repositioning the company. We spun out AOL. We had a cable company who was Time Warner Cable. It's now basically Charter Communications. We had a music company. And at the time, you had iTunes being introduced that disrupted it. So there was a lot of repositioning that had to happen. And ultimately, we were able to reposition the different businesses, and we had a business that was growing and vibrant. But as successful as we were, in 2012, probably 10 years into my tenure, there was a little company called Netflix.
That one we know, yeah.
At the time, it was known for the red envelopes. Sent you DVDs by mail in the red envelope. Yeah. And it started a nascent technology, streaming. I mean, this is less than 15 years ago. Yeah. And all of a sudden, big media companies like Time Warner, we saw it coming. We discounted how quickly they could evolve their business model. And candidly, when you are a public company, the ability to continue to deliver in the short term and at the same time plan for the long term is incredibly challenging. You have various stakeholders. First and foremost, your shareholders. They will ask you.
They're not always the most understanding.
No, the people who are investing in your businesses, they are judged on your performance on an annual basis. They're not judged based upon how the business is going to be positioned 5 years from now. And as a leadership team, it's really important that you pay attention to both long-term and short-term. Ultimately, we successfully sold Time Warner to AT&T, and that's how I ultimately joined AT&T and ultimately became the CFO. But during that time, seeing the evolution of those businesses and the transformation that happened, it was quite profound an experience for me. And the thing that always happens is, as a leadership team, you see the change coming. You try to address it, but you invariably don't take the radical actions that are so critical in order to reposition the business, because what it will invariably do is require enormous short-term sacrifices. And let me talk a little bit about my time at AT&T. I joined AT&T as the CFO in late 2020. At the time,
middle of COVID, or right, yeah.
Yeah, it was, the vaccine hadn't been yet rolled out. And we had three major businesses. Media business, we had the Time Warner businesses that it acquired a couple of years earlier, DirecTV, a dying satellite platform, and had one of the largest wireless companies in the world who needed to transition from 4G protocol to 5G, and it needed enormous investment in spectrum, and a broadband business that was largely DSL based that needed to upgrade with fiber. And at the time, we had one of the largest debt loads out of any corporate in the world.
Could you say more about the debt load? I know that's something you guys have worked really hard to bring down.
Yeah, when I joined, our leverage target was somewhere around, our leverage was around 3.4, 3.5 times net debt. Ideally, an investment-grade company like ours should be in the 2.5 times range, and that gives you the capacity to continue to invest in your business is one, but and comfortably service that debt. We had far too much debt on our balance sheet.
Just to be, so that deleveraging, though, that's tens of billions of dollars. That's
it ended up being, yes, several tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah,
At our height, we were at 160 billion. We ended this year, this past year at just shy of 118 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I would say kind of unpopular in a way, right? Because you have to cut a lot of things. You have to give up stuff.
Yeah, look, in order to, here's what ultimately we had to do. You had all three businesses needed significant investments. So in order to do that, with our debt load and the dividend obligations we had to make some pretty profound changes in a short period of time. We sold off virtually all of our media assets. Within
all the Time Warner stuff.
Time Warner, DirecTV. We had an anime studio. We had an advertising platform.
All the fun stuff you got rid of?
Got rid of it within my first year. I'm not necessarily the most fun guy around the office.
The CFO is always fun.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we had to, we reduced our dividend from $15 billion annually to $8 billion. And if you know, telecom stocks are measured in large part by the amount of dividends they pay to shareholders. And so we understood, like, doing that was going to reduce the stock price significantly in the short term, but we needed to create a much more sustainable model for the business as we looked ahead.
Can I just ask about that? Just in general, that's one of the great questions you always get in a business school. What should the dividend be? Should we cut it? What does it mean when we're paying too much, too little? Dividend policy can be like sacred text. Like, if you touch it, they'll come for you. The market is not friendly about that at all. So how do you tell that story that we're going to cut the dividend to make this big change? Because that's really in your wheelhouse as a CFO. You've got to tell that story.
You have to. And look, our credibility was questioned at the time. Because for years, AT&T was pursuing a media strategy as the key to growing the franchise long term. And so that strategy wasn't working. And as a result, it created the need to have to reduce the dividend. But smart investors understood that that dividend was not sustainable on the path we were on. And what you do is, as a management team, especially when you're early in your administration, you have but no choice but to make the really hard decisions, or else the situation will continue to decline. I mean, candidly, when I assessed the situation, the status quo was not tenable, and if we hadn't done this,
because of the investment you needed to make?
The investment you needed to make, and the fact that the earnings were going to decline over time, and the cash produced by the business was going to decline over time. Just think about it. If you are a media company that is tethered and spending most of your dollars and making most of your money on cable television and not streaming, one thing's for sure: as streaming becomes more and more popular, cable is going to continue to decline. There'll be less cash coming out of that business, and that's what, in fact, we knew was going to happen. So the dividend ultimately was going to have to be sacrificed one way or the other. This is a way to do it in a way that is within our control. And importantly, the reduction of the dividend, reinvesting significantly back into our core businesses. The last 5 years, we spent $150 billion investing in wireless and broadband infrastructure.
Wow.
And that's
so these are the 5G towers. It's everything that goes on.
5G, upgrading our plant from what was principally DSL to now principally fiber and growing. And the business is growing, and we've grown share the last 5 years. And we're steadily growing earnings, cash, and we announced last week that we're going to buy back over the next 3 years $24 billion of stock. So it's a really good story. The business is on a much more stable path, but in the short term, we took the stock down fairly radically as a result of that decision. But I'll never forget the CEO's quote when we sold the media business, the CEO of the media business that we sold it to said, wow, cutting the dividends is a tough story. How do you think investors are going to react? He's like, look, if nothing else, I would have done a favor for my successor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the path we're on is not sustainable.
So you must do a lot of this, traveling around to speak to investors, tell these stories. I don't know how much of your day or your week that is, but that's got to be complicated in today's age. I mean, I would say things have changed radically with AI. That's an obvious one we can get to, but just the CapEx story of the world. We see these extraordinarily, AT&T is a big CapEx investor, but the stakes have really risen with AI and data centers. Numbers I never thought I would see are out there bidding for a lot of.
Neither did I. I mean, it's sort of like we used to be the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, investing at $23, $24 billion, we were by far among the top 5 CapEx spenders in the world. Not anymore. I mean, today Amazon announced it's going to spend $200 billion this year.
Wow.
It's extraordinary amounts.
And this is data, I mean, wow, okay, yeah.
Extraordinary.
And so that has effects on capital markets, that has effects on the way you talk to your investors, on all that. That's a big, big story you have to continue.
I mean, what's really important when you're making bets at that size and scale is to really paint a picture of, okay, what can your shareholders expect as a result of you doing that? What are the key milestones that you're going to hit to show that this investment is in fact succeeding? And going back quarter after quarter, saying, hey, remember I told you this is where we were going to be, and here's how it lines up, or doesn't. Mm-hmm. And it's so incredibly important in order to maintain your credibility with investors to own up to the fact where you fall short. And as importantly, what are you going to do to course correct as you look ahead? And so it's, with that level of spending, you owe it not only to your shareholders, to your lenders, the rating agencies, to really help them understand this is what we are doing and why we're doing it and what you can expect from us as a result of doing it. And it is one you do over and over and over again, and you do it with as much clarity as you can, because that's how your cost of capital will be minimized.
Yeah, no, this is why you're a CFO of AT&T and managing that type of a budget, is because you can have that discipline and you know how to tell that story over and over. Things come up, you have emergencies, all sorts of issues, you have to be responsive to all that. The market never sleeps is
all the time.
Problematic.
Yeah.
So watching that. I wanted to switch a little bit and just ask you about something else you deal with, and that is that you manage people and you lead people. So when you're thinking about who you want on your team, the types of characteristics, the types of experiences, people you want to work close with, what are the things that you look at? There are a lot of people who would like to work for the CFO of AT&T. What impresses you?
Yeah. Look, it always comes down to, okay, whatever the role is, the person has to be qualified. They need to have the right set of credentials and the experiences to effectively do the jobs. But that is table stakes. It really is. You really want to understand how they will fit in and work as part of a team. And what's been their track record? How self-aware are they about what their strengths and weaknesses are? One of the questions I love to ask in an interview is, in your last role, what was your biggest regret? What was your biggest setback, and how'd you overcome it? And for nothing else, it gives you a sense if the person has perspective and they're thoughtful and have really thought about what they did and what they could have done differently. Because if you're not able to do that on a continuous basis, reflect upon what you did and how it could have been better, then chances are you're not going to be able to continue to grow and evolve as you look ahead.
Yeah, so I imagine you do.
So it is making sure that they have the right level of EQ and emotional intelligence. Also, are they going to be the sort of person I enjoy being around?
Yep.
And the team will enjoy being around, because this is teamwork, it really is. Problems are hard, and you want people who are pleasant and who are willing to work hard.
Yeah, we talk a lot to our students about all those factors, so it's really helpful to hear that. And it is a challenge to build a whole person, not just a set of particular skills and expertises, but someone who's a team player, someone who you can work with, live with. Business doesn't really sleep. That's a challenge. What about any particular skills that are critical or coming to the fore?
Especially when the more senior you are, what's really important is your ability to have the resilience and and grit and the ability to keep getting back up in the face of adversity, because these jobs are so incredibly hard. Nothing ever goes according to plan. There will always be setbacks.
That's comforting to hear, actually.
Yeah. If anybody, like, whenever I talk to somebody and you interview somebody and say, okay, what went badly? If they're not able to tell you what went badly, chances are they're not being honest. These are big companies, big institutions. A lot happens. A lot goes right, but a lot goes wrong. And having perspective and the ability to really know what has not gone your very best and to course correct that is so incredibly important.
That's helpful. If I could ask you now to kind of help us look ahead a little bit. We're all, daily thinking about how AI changes our lives and our industries and our world. To get ready for that future, you described this really nicely. You had your Time Warner story, your AOL, your Netflix. This is a lot of change and revolution. No, the ground is never fixed beneath you, right? Companies come and they go. All the greats, no matter how high, go down eventually if they don't adapt and change. It feels like a moment where that's a question at play again. We've seen software companies, for example, that had great positions just get crushed in recent weeks by AI and what it's doing to replicate things that were once held in other ways. When you look ahead, what do you think AT&T has to do to be ready for what's coming in the next year or 3 years, and how are you preparing for that?
Peter, I say with the utmost humility, you really don't know. We are in so much the early innings of AI. The tools are incredibly powerful. They are already increasing productivity in things for us like coding, customer care, the fraud detection and anomalies. Even something as basic as we have a bunch of field techs that go out and service customers. What is the optimal routing? Mm-hmm. Having diagnostics in place so that when they make the fix, it's right the first time. All things that are already in flight. As I fast forward, the productivity gains will be enormous. But there will be a lot of disruption. For example, today, most consumers, when they go and buy a new phone service, they'll either walk into a store, they'll go online and do searches, and you can influence the outcome of those searches depending on the keywords that you buy. And when you get an AI answer that summarizes, that compares and contrasts, the discovery basis for our service is going to change radically. And we need to reposition the company in order to meet that change. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but rest assured we are investing in trying to figure out what that all looks like. But that's just one small example. There will be lots of things that come out of it. And I'm not smart enough to know, but here's what I do know. In order to stay ahead of disruption, there are a few things you have to get right. First and foremost, you make sure you are continuing to serve the business of today, because that's going to be the fuel that allows you to fund continued innovation in your business. So you have to keep doing that well. 2, you have to improve that as quickly as you can. 3, at the same time, you have to have people that are off looking at and trying to actively disrupt what you're doing to see if there's a better, cheaper way to do it. And if you're not doing all 3 things continuously right, it's not, you will not succeed. You will not evolve your business.
That's a difficult set, though. I mean,
It is incredibly difficult. That's why a lot of companies don't have the endurance that an AT&T or even institutions having the endurance of Rice University. It's because it's hard. You have to constantly get better. If you don't, you will be replaced. Yeah. You know, I always say the one thing I know for sure is if I continuously serve my customers really well and have an eye on what they want and am able to get it to them at a fair price, that's how I stay relevant.
Yeah, yeah. And that's never been more important. That's a great focus to have, and that clarifies so much of what you do. You spoke about this earlier, that in some ways the most fundamental balance you have to navigate is sufficient resources in the present and sufficient investment for the future, right? And that's giving up a lot. And it can be hard to sell that story today to say, we've got to do more, we've got to make it fast. It's not easy, but here it is. And so that's something you're always navigating. And making those judgments, I would think that's intellectual, it's personal, visceral, all the above.
Look, it is, but as I always say, you can't forget the reason why you are there. You are there to leave an organization that is better off than when you started. And you have to make sure that you are investing and positioning the firm for the long term. That is foundational. And if you don't do that, very quickly, smart investors will say, hey, this is not sustainable. I may stay in it for a little bit, but I'm going to get out well before the cracks start to show. So they know. And so what's important as a leadership team, you take input from your shareholders, but it's your job to make the decision. And if the decisions are ones that are not creating long-term value, ultimately you're going to be held accountable by those same shareholders. So what's critical in navigating it is to communicate. Tell them what to expect. Yes, we're going to sacrifice near-term earnings. Here's what it's going to look like. And here's what you're going to get on the other side of it. And really be clear about that and be consistent. And look, they may not like it, but at least they have full information to make their investment decisions.
That sounds really good. It's clear that you've done this before and you get that job really well. That makes a lot of great sense. Let me ask you a slightly different story, and then before long we'll get some questions here. It sounds like a very busy, challenging job. How much do you travel?
You know what? I probably travel 40% of my time, which is not terrible. It really is, and it's just what is really the hardest part about these jobs is not the travel, but the fact that you're overseeing such a vast, big organization. Maintaining alignment among your employees, your shareholders, your debtors, making sure everybody understands what you're trying to do, because you're in it every day and you take it for granted that they know and understand what you're trying to do and what your actions are guided by. But what this job has really reinforced for me is the fact that you have to over-communicate and you have to be really rigorous about it and always start to say, remember, here's what we've said.
Here's where we're going.
Yeah, and maintaining alignment is so critical because you have a big organization that you expect to go out and execute in the strategy that the leadership has developed, and the only way they can do that is if you are keeping them along on the journey.
I got it. Before I open up to some questions, I always have a question I want to ask for on behalf of our students, which is simply, if you were to advise a young 18 to 22-year-old or maybe a young MBA today, how would you get started in your career? What would you study? What would you advise them to do in the future to be prepared for the workforce of tomorrow? What are some of the things that come to the top of your list?
The ability to think critically above anything else is really important. I'm not going to say you need to be a deep subject matter expert in any one thing, but the ability to problem solve and also to get along with people and be able to work as teams and to contribute to the team are probably the two things that we look for when we're hiring people out of school. Can you think, do you know, do you have a strong foundation to problem solve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's usually what we think about in a core liberal arts education with a lot of STEM is most professors will say they're not teaching a subject, they're teaching you how to think.
And with AI, the tools that you have to help your critical thinking are exponentially better.
Yeah,
that's how I think about it.
Well, this has been really helpful. I want to give the audience a chance to ask you some questions. I don't know what they'll ask. They're usually pretty well behaved, but we have a couple of mic runners, and so if you have a question for Pascal, if you would raise your hand and wait till we get a mic to you so we can hear your question and he can answer it for you. So we'll see who's first up. So down here in the back. And please tell us your name.
Rick Massey. I'm an independent consultant in project management type things. My concern on business today is how do you deal with the continual adversity that pops up at a moment's notice for a week at a time and then jumps into something else the next week. And I realized that running a company in the long term has been the ability to see what the future sort of looks like. And right now, I don't see that anybody can figure out what the future looks like for at least the next 3 years.
In what regard are you referring?
The political aspects of what goes on, the tariffs, the chosen company to support.
Yeah, policy uncertainty.
Look,
that you've got to stay within the rails someplace.
Yeah. I think about politics, macroeconomic conditions. Those are constraints that we have to solve within. That's why they pay management teams and leadership. And you have to have a good pulse on what's happening at any given day. And you have to respond to it. And like all other companies, we've had to adjust to this administration. We'll have to adjust to the next administration. And not allowing that to obsess you or to paralyze you. Instead, how does it, I always start with, how does it impact our mission and what we're trying to do? And how do we minimize the impact on what we're trying to do day to day? Because administrations come, they go, they evolve, but we're going to be there, especially in an infrastructure firm. Look, the investments we're making today are going to serve the next generation of leaders for AT&T. They're not going to, the payback periods are extremely long, and they take a while to show fruits. So you have to have a long-term view in order to effectively manage and not allow what's coming out of Washington or what's happening in the economy to paralyze you. Instead, you say, okay, if this is the situation, how does it impact our program? How do we minimize the impact? And you keep iterating, and that's what a leadership is paid to do.
It makes, I got you. I guess you were saying earlier, if you watch your customer, you really, that's what you're really focused on through it all, and so you watch them closely. We have another question here.
Hello, hi, Camille Little. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to hear your perspective. So I work in venture capital, and one of the challenges that we see all the time with emerging technologies is change management and trying to address that, especially in an organization that's been around for such a long time. So you as a leader, how do you set the example and set the pace and maybe, have incentives for employees to actually adopt emerging technologies to stay on the forefront of innovation?
Look, it's a great question. You know, right now, last May I launched an initiative that said, we're going to clean sheet the finance organization. You know, we're going to look at every single process that we have and look at the AI capabilities that are available and will likely be available for what we can see, and how do we remake it. And we start by, first and foremost, requiring all of our employees to get training on AI. And there are requirements that you have to meet a certain level of accomplishment before you can get promoted to another role. We have we've invested in co-pilot license for every single employee, and we talk to them about what we're trying to do to transform. Trust me, there are lots of people who will drag their feet and who will say why it's difficult, but the way I deal with it as a leader is this. Every single staff meeting, I talk about how is our transformation going. I put my leadership team on the spot, say, okay, tell me a little bit about what your organization's doing. Where are we investing? What's been the early reaction? Where do we need to course correct? After you do that a couple of times, people come ready to talk about it. And you have to be very proactive in leaning into the disruption, or else you're gonna become less relevant. And it's, to me, we just don't have a choice. And as I said, every town hall, every staff meeting, we're talking about it, and employees are seeing the progress we're making.
Do you, did you, after you white sheeted, was it substantial change? Did you
We're
find
still in the, Peter, like, this is gonna take years to get to the other side. Really is, you know, there are some areas that's pretty easy. As I said, like, you know, fraud is one of the areas that reports into me. The tools and the ability to better detect fraud and anomalies is extraordinary.
That's good, because people worry about fraud on the other side too,
Yeah.
the ability to create fraud.
And so, but in order, the technology doesn't really get, you don't capitalize on the technology unless you have process, unless you transform the processes as well. Otherwise, you're just making processes that are suboptimal more efficient. That's not what we're after.
That's a good point.
And so, to me, it always starts with, okay, if we had to clean sheet it today, what would it look like with all the automation, all the tools that we have available?
I got it. Thank you. We have another question up here.
Hello, bonsoir Pascal. Nous bien contents nous avons chance pour tendre à soya. My name is Vanessa Lambert. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with Compass Group. For y'all that didn't understand that wasn't for you. My question is around risk. Changes are going to happen, but maybe what are the 2 or 3 things that you consider when making a big change? For example, moving the headquarters to from Dallas to Plano. What are the top 2 or 3 things that you consider when making a big change like that?
You always start with the end in mind. All right. How do you have what is the optimal environment for employees to be productive long term, as an example? We've been in Dallas since around 2009, and we have, I'm taking you into the weeds, but gives you a sense for the work that we did. We have about 6,000 employees in Dallas, and we have another 6,000 employees scattered in other parts. So, okay, in an ideal world, we don't want to have multiple campuses in the same city, because it doesn't allow us to invest sufficiently to create the sort of experiences that our employees deserve. And so, okay, can we expand where we are in Dallas? Well, you know, you have a bunch of buildings that are old that would need to be retrofitted, and we'd have to do it within the context of staying in place and all the disruptions and innovations that are necessary. And we said, look, if we had to clean sheet this, what would that look like? And what is the place that gives us the best opportunity to achieve our goals? And it's really always starting, and whether it's the move to Plano or something else, it always starts with, what are you trying to accomplish? And then what are the options to accomplish it in a way that is as seamless as possible and provides the best possible outcome?
I know we have another question over there, but you mentioned Dallas a few times. I'm not sensitive about it, but how's Texas? How was Texas? Did you ever expect to be in Texas?
You know, funny thing is, both President Desroches and I both grew up in New York. We both had jobs in Georgia, Atlanta, at the same time. And here we are, probably some 10 years later, we're both in Texas.
He's following me around.
I was going to say, where are you going next?
So you know, you never know where opportunities will bring you. So I know Texas was not on my bingo card, but here I am and enjoying life some 5+ years later.
Glad to hear that. We say you got here as soon as you could, right?
Absolutely.
We have a question up here.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dr. Matthews. I'm a small business owner here in Houston. And Dr. Pascal, I'd like to get your thoughts about the idea of a small business blockchaining their business for installation and also tokenizing it.
You know, doctor, I'm not smart enough to know exactly what that does for you. It really, I always say, in any business that you are in, it's about the customer. It really is. And I don't know enough about blockchain and all the benefits it will provide to your particular business. But unless it is improving the value proposition for your customers, allowing you to operate more efficiently, and passing on some of those savings to them, you know, that's where it would make sense. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to answer in a vacuum. I don't know enough about your business.
We have another one up here. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Carrie Potter, and in addition to running my own business, I'm also a lecturer here at Rice in sport finance. And I ask my students every semester, why did you choose Rice? And they say because of the community, overwhelmingly. They feel heard, they feel seen, and to me, that's customer service. So how does AT&T prioritize customer service? You touched on it a little bit in your former answer, to really compete and win that category, to win customers over continuously and retain those customers in the long run.
Look, it is a journey, not a destination, I would tell you. There are, every single day, we don't meet the standards we set for ourselves. You wouldn't imagine the number of complaints I get in my inbox each and every day, and some of them I'm appalled at, and we aspire to do better. But what I do know is this: when problems are brought to our attention, we address them, and we always make sure we try to treat the customer fairly. Do we always accomplish it every day? No, but the vast majority of the time we do, or else we would not have a franchise today. We invest a lot in customer care. We invest a lot in order to be able to make sure that the prices that we're offering to our consumers are competitive and they're fair for the services they're acquiring. And that's at the core of it, and to continually refresh yourself and do that each and every day is at the core of any business.
Thank you. I know we have at least one more up here, and I may just take one more in case.
Yeah. Mr. Desroches, thank you for your time and the great wisdom. So when I heard first the last name Desroches, I saw like we're talking about our president, and no, because I saw him there too, but like how it happened, like from one family, one of them being like CFO of the greatest company, and one of them is president of the best university. What your parents did something, I mean, definitely right? So can you tell me, like?
Yes, indeed.
I'm the father of two, so I think it's very important.
I wish I knew. If I knew, I would bottle it and sell it to everyone. So no, Mom and Dad did a really good job, and so incredibly proud of them and the examples they have set for us, and candidly, the fire they've lit within us to really want to be continuous learners and to be curious about life.
And education, you took that seriously, invested
Oh,
in the work?
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's something very much there. It was a question on everybody's mind. Thank you for asking. I guess our last one, maybe right here with Marcus. Oh, could we get a? George had a question. Oh, sorry, George had a question. George Gonzalez here.
I wonder if you could speak to competitive risks in long-term, leapfrogging technologies, for instance, specifically satellite communications. Can you say who you are? George Gonzalez with Haynes and Moon Law Firm. And I love Rice University. I'm on the board of trustees, and on the board of the business school, which is
That's right.
A+. But really, I mean, when the
Yeah,
AT&T management thinks through competitive risks, and you see, particularly being a technology company, I would worry about leapfrogging innovation. And specifically, I know you've invested in satellite technology, and you have a partnership in satellite, but I wonder what your thoughts are as to satellite going forward.
Yeah, it's a great question. Here is the satellite. We believe the use cases will be principally in places where it's cost prohibitive to bring network wireless infrastructure or broadband infrastructure. Broadband and wireless networks, their ability to carry information at incredible speeds and with very good reliability, as a matter of physics, cannot be matched by satellite. So satellite, we believe, is going to be very akin to when you go to another country and you are all of a sudden roaming on another carrier's network. It will be very much like that when you go to a national park and you don't get cell service. Satellite is a great solution to answer that, to address that, because you could do it, you could cover much broader geography without having to put all the network technology in place. With that said, look, George, I've seen so much disruption during the course of my career. You never say never. So how do we stay ahead of that? We do things like taking an investment position in a company, AST Satellite, public company. And we are working with them, trying to innovate, learn as much as possible. Many of the ecosystem around satellite, we make venture type investments in all of them to make sure that we are keeping up with the learnings and to make sure we're not missing anything. There has to always be a healthy bit of paranoia, or else you will not succeed. And so our best minds and the best level of thinking right now would suggest that unless there is some innovation that allows you to be able to transport information using airwaves as opposed to actual networks, it's hard to see, but you never say never.
Thank you so much, Pascal. I think what we'll do, since we have a reception afterwards, I think we'll end it right here. There'll be plenty of time to ask some questions going forward. Pascal, thank you so much for your time here.
Thank you.
I was going to say, if you ever get tired of AT&T, we need finance professors with experience. The boss is pretty good.
All right.
You'll be fine. But anyway, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. One more time for Pascal. Thank you so much.
Thank you for a wonderful discussion, very thought-provoking. We do have a networking reception, but before we go, I just wanted to thank you all so much again for coming. I want to thank Judge Lena Hidalgo for coming today as well, President Desroches, Pascal Desroches, thank you. Before you all go, we really care about your feedback. There are 2 QR codes up there. You can tell us how you enjoyed today's event, what other speakers you would like to see. We would love to see all of you come back for Rice Business Partner events. Join us for our membership as well. Thank you all so much. Thank you.